Alright, so in this lab, what I'm going to focus on is to demonstrate access control, especially between our network or resource, web server, or anything of that nature. So the first thing in order to demonstrate that, I'm going to create a web server, okay? And I'm going to call that web server, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better word, I'm just going to call it, let's call this one, Minneapolis, okay? I've used Minneapolis quite a bit, so let's just stick with it for now. So, and I'm going to use Debian here, because I'm going to be installing a Debian Nginx web server. So I'm going to go over here and just go ahead and do that. And then on the networking side here, I'm going to create a network tag. That's one other concept that I'm not sure we really used it as much, but here I'm going to show you how to use a network tag to control access or to filter a particular network traffic. So here we go now. Where are we? Network here. All right, and here I'm going to just enter web server. All right, so I've created a network tag here, and I'm just going to go ahead and run create. And I'm going to go ahead and do another one here, and here I'm going to call this one Rochester, and I'm going to create this other machine. I'm going to leave it at GNOME here, and here I'm not going to create another tag, but I'm just going to go ahead and create this machine straight up. So now I have two machines here, and they're both going to be in the default network. I'm going to go ahead and create another one, and this machine I'm going to put it, I'm going to call it, let's call it analyst. Okay, I'm going to call it analyst VM, and I'm going to put it in center, and I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm going to make this one Ubuntu system, because I'm only going to be using it to test really. And then on the network here, you realize that the other system that we've installed, they were all on the default network. So what I'm going to do here is to perhaps put this machine in a different network. Not that it really does matter, it doesn't matter at all, but I'm just going to put it in a separate network, different network here. Let's put it in Minneapolis. After all, Minneapolis can go anywhere now. Go to OK, and I'm going to go to create. So I have this machine powering up, and while Analyst is being installed, I'm going to quickly go ahead and open the first one that we've installed. Let's see if it's going to power up. And I've given you an example in the class before. Sometimes when you're installing this machine and it's taking a long time to run, sometimes make sure you don't have any of that stuff that's going on in the background. So I'm going to have Minneapolis here, as you can see, and Rochester, both of them running side by side. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick installation for them. I'm going to install Nginx, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. It's just a web server, and I'm going to do the same thing over here as well on this Nginx here. So I'm installing two web server up here, and I'm going to come here and edit them both. Edit them. I'm going to edit this one as well. And here I'm just going to come over here and just edit this, and I'm going to call this one Welcome to Rochester. I'm going to save it, exit out. Here I'm going to say welcome to Minneapolis. And we can easily check to make sure that those changes take effect by viewing the file that we've just, you can see, welcome to Minneapolis, and here, you know, welcome to Rochester here. So looks like you know, we're good to go. So the next thing that I'm going to, you know, have us do here is to try and see if this web server can be viewed. You can easily find out, and I will go ahead and put this one here. I'm going to open the analytics box, and from the analytics box I'm going to try to see if I can view any of the machine and take a look at what I have here. So I can just type curl and write out the IP address of this. This is Rochester here. I'm going to go to analyst if I can find it. This is Minneapolis, Rochester, and this is analyst. So that's not what we want here. So that's the external IP address of Minneapolis. As you can see, looks like it's not responding to us. Let's go ahead and cancel here. And let's try external IP address. Of this one as well. And you can see when we try to access both external IP address, there was no response. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do then is I want to see if I can solve this problem by creating a firewall rule. What would my firewall rule do for me? Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to test it now, and I'm going to have a firewall rule that is going to say allow web traffic. Okay, and I'm going to essentially come over here and make some specification. I'm going to tell it to look for a traffic with a tag. If you remember that earlier on, we did that. And I'm going to say from any network. And here, what we've simply done is to actually come over here and say from any network, if it's targeting, you know, a server with the traffic that's, you know, have web server on the tag, that it should allow it and its ingress. So I'm going to go ahead and create this rule now. Oh, something here I forgot. I need to specify, you know, what port it should expect it, and in this case it's going to be port 80. Okay, and over here I can even allow ICMP. Alright, so and I'm going to go back here and bring this guy up again. And remember, if you still remember, one of the machine is tagged, and we're going to try both of them again. Now you can see now 104, which is Minneapolis. All of a sudden now, when I crawl it, accessing the web page, it allows me to access it because the firewall rule says allow any traffic that is destined for Minneapolis. How did we specify Minneapolis? Through the tag, through the network tag. You'll see that if I go back and access the other one, still will not have access to it, because the rule on the firewall rule here, if you remember, on the default we allow ICMP to come in from any network. We allow anything, okay? We allow any port, any traffic within the network. So the only thing we allow from any network, you would see over here, is within. Every other stuff that we have over here, we allow ICMP to come in from anywhere. We allow RDP to come in from anywhere. We allow ASH to come in from anywhere. ICMP here as well, that's another network, but we do not allow 80 to come in from anywhere. And the 80 we allow to come in from any network here has to be tagged. We filter it, and that applies to only Minneapolis web server. Okay, I'm going to show you something real quick now, because I want you guys to get a really I'm going to call this one blue. Let's call it blue. All right, and I'm just going to come over here, Iowa. I'm going to make it Ubuntu. Click OK, and I'm going to run it because it's going to be automatically put in the default network. So it's going to be in the same network with Minneapolis and Rochester server. So click create here. Alright, so we have this system now that are on the same network with these guys. So what I'm going to do is quickly do something that we haven't done with the other machines. I'm going to try and access this with the internal IP address. Alright, so look at this now. This might interest you. This is Minneapolis. See, I'm able to get it. External as well, we should be able to get it from external because of the firewall rule that we wrote. Right? See that? Able to see it. But remember that we're not able to see this guy from outside. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you now in a second. If you look at it, we weren't able to view it from outside. Press enter because of the firewall. The firewall rule that we wrote only allow a traffic that is tagged with web server. And this guy was not tagged. So, well, let's see. How else can I access this? I can access this by 28.0.7. See, now I can view Rochester now. Because blue is within the same network. The rule does not stop this system from accessing it. And if you look at the rule, you will see that from within this network, any traffic will go through. And that's why we're able to access this from the external network. All right? So, that's that. The next thing I want to show you is to also look at the access control through permissions of roles. All right? Now, let me quickly show you something here. When I create this blue VM here, it automatically by default, by default, and that applies to every VM you create. Naturally, when you create a VM, you're going to be using by default the Compute Engine service account. And I can run you through that. See, look at the bottom here. See, the service account. That is the service account that this machine is using. And this account, by default, is Compute Engine. Permission roles that he's got. So, that it has a limited role. And I will demonstrate it for you now. I'm going to try to view my firewall rules. Okay? I'm going to try and view or list my firewall rules with that account. and you would see right there, you know, it's taking for too long, and it's probably going to come back with an error message. It's going to say you don't have enough permission. You know, I'm also going to try to delete, you know, a firewall rule. Well, of course, if you cannot list it, you're definitely not going to have, see insufficient permission. So if you cannot view it, you're going to have problem also deleting it. So I'm going to try and delete. You can see delete one of the web server rule that we created. Of course, you know, if I say yes here, you will also find out that it's not going to have sufficient permission to do that. So the next way, in order to solve that problem, you know, I'm going to go ahead and create a service account. The service account I'm going to create, I'm going to give it permissions to enough permission to be able to do some of these things, and then we're going to try and authorize this virtual machine to use that. So here I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to IAM and go over under the IAM here, and I'm going to create service account. And under the service account here, I'm going to call this account network admin. All right, let's call this account network admin. So I'm going to create a service account here, and I'm going to call the service account network admin, and I'm going to go ahead and create it. And now it's asking me to select the role for this account, and I'm going to go to compute engine. Remember, this is for the machine. I'm going to go over here to compute engine, and I'm going to give this guy compute network admin, because compute network admin will allow you to be able to do what this guy couldn't do earlier on, which is to list firewall rules. This one, not this last one here, but this first one here that it couldn't do, list firewall rule here. You know, being a network admin will let him do that. So we're going to go ahead and then you know, click continue, and that's been done. And now I have an option out here. So I can download a key. You can create a key, download a file that contains the private key. You know, I can store this file because this key cannot be recovered if it's lost. You know, so I'm going to go ahead and create a key here, and I'm going to store it in a JSON format. Okay, I'm going to store it in a JSON format. I'm going to create it. It's going to save it on my desktop. So here I'm just going to put it on my desktop over here, and I'm just going to call this file, I can call it credential. Okay, I'm going to call it credentials. Call the credentials over here and go to save. And I go to save now, and there you go. So I have my private key saved there as credential. We're going to need it later. I'm going to say done, and you know, you could see right now, here is the file, the one I just created. I call it network admin, that is the name, and you know, here's my key ID. You can see this one has no key, and this is what you have by default. You know, the compute engine, you know, that's what you have by default for Amazon. So now I'm going to open up this box here. All right, and on this box here, I'm going to try and upload the file that I downloaded earlier on. Upload file, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to select the credential. Here's the credential over here, and you can see I have you know, uploaded it into my system, and I'm going to run a file here, a command rather. See, I'm going to say gcloud. What I'm trying to do here is to authorize this machine to use this network admin service account. Okay, I'm trying to authorize this machine to use, you know, the service account, the network admin, admin that we create. So I'm saying authorize activate service account, and then the only way I can authorize it is to provide my private key, which only I have, and if I do that, now this machine now has been authorized. You can see activate service account credentials for network admin at CVF 1071, and you can remember that is the name of my project. That is the name of this project. You can see that now, right? So been authorized here now, and now I can go back and then run the command that I ran earlier on that didn't work, firewall rule, and now you can see now that this machine now, because it's using these credentials now that I just allow it to work, everything works just fine. However, if I try to ask it to delete, for example, now if I ask it to go ahead and delete a firewall rule, you will realize that this might not work, because network administrators are not supposed to be able to delete firewall rules. They're supposed to be able to list it. All right, they're supposed to list it and not be able to delete it. So how do we resolve that issue then? Well, that's very, very relatively easy. We'll go back to where we started from earlier. See, now it doesn't have the right to do it. So then I'm going to go back to my service account here, okay, and then I'm going to find these network admin here. Here is the here is the name, the one we had earlier on, right? And you could edit this file if you want to edit it. There's a couple of stuff that we can do to it. Number one, you can go ahead and modify and give it a new account. So let me walk you guys through the entire process so you could actually see. Here is the file here. I'll select this interface here, and you can see here is the account that we gave to it earlier on. All right, so then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select you can either add roles, or you can go ahead and change roles. So I'm going to drop this one down, and what we have here is compute. Let's see if I can locate compute engine, and now I'm going to select computer security admin. Computer security admin, this one here now, computer security admin. I'm going to go ahead and click save. Policy has been updated. I'll come over here and I'm going to run the same command we ran earlier on, and I'm going to type yes here, and we'll see if it actually delete the file. And you can see the firewall rules that we are looking at here has actually been deleted. You can verify that the firewall is no longer working, because this is a file that allows us to access this Minneapolis from outside. If I try to do it again, something that we've done earlier from the analyst here, if I try to do it again, which is 104, remember we access 104 here, and we're able to view this file. If I go back and do the same thing now, you can see because I've deleted the firewall rule, I no longer was able to do something that I did over here that worked. When I did it over here now, it no longer worked. That's because we've deleted the firewall rules that allow this process to work. This is the end of our lab. I hope you've learned one or two lessons here I will go and quickly recapitulate. We created 2 web server. We created a firewall rules to allow traffic based on the network tag of one of the web server. We're able to access it when we created the firewall rules. We also created another machine that is in the same network with these 2 web server, and we're able to access both of these web servers from inside. But from outside, the firewall rules was essentially effective. Then the next thing we try to do is we try to list or view the firewall rules, but we weren't able to do that. And the reason we weren't able to do that is simply because when you create a VM, in Google Cloud Platform, your VM is going to use the generic default, service account, and that service account does not have enough permission to view firewall rules. Actually, the name is Compute Engine default service account. And what we did was we went around and create an account, and we gave that account some necessary permissions to view the firewall rules. Actually, precisely, we went to Compute Engine and we give it a network compute network admin. But that does not allow us to delete the firewall rules, in which case we go ahead and add a security admin to it. And that will bring us to the end of our lab. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.